It's Friday, January 22nd, and you are listening to On the Heels Wrestling Podcast. I'm Ray.
I'm Brittany.
I'm Kyle.
So we're three coworkers. We like pro wrestling, and this podcast gives us a space to talk about our favorite American performance art and America. Without getting all those confused looks we get when we suddenly start talking about how awesome the new day is as we're sitting in the kitchen at work.
Now they just give us the confused look through the glass door of this studio, which is even better.
Or the people who are really smart and say, save it for the podcast. Save it for the podcast. This is podcast material. Yeah.
I feel like I'm podcast police. What this podcast is, though, is about giving consistent bite-sized commentary on the world of wrestling with its primary focus on the WWE's main roster, NXT, and occasional other topics like today.
Every week we'll either recap the previous week's Raw, NXT, pay-per-view, or we'll hold a roundtable discussion on a particular topic. This episode was supposed to be our first episode. This is now our third episode. So unless you're friends and family, you might be wondering, who the hell are we? So this episode is our introduction to you, who we are, and our background with wrestling. So Kyle, we're going to start with you. When did you first start watching wrestling?
It's like three distinct starts for me. There's, being a kid who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, there was the, all kids liked wrestling phase of wrestling. So, Hogan, Bret Hart, start of his stuff, then. And I remember, having a birthday party one year where we all went to, a house show. And that was pretty cool.
Best birthday ever.
Yeah, but I mean, also at that time, 9, 10, 11, don't fully appreciate it, right? You're just full on, rooting for the good guys, that kind of stuff. Yeah. A simpler time, right? Yeah. And then, many, around a year or two later, kind of just fell off. Until high school, where my buddy Anthony got me into it again. And then at that age, you're sort of able to identify with the characters more and decide if you like heels or not.
This is Attitude Era.
And that my age and timeline wise falls boom right into that. Basically pre-Attitude Era is the one where I started watching. It's about a year before.
Second generation where Brett's starting. And
no, a little bit after that. Brett has at this point.
World champion at this point?
No, he's been it multiple times already.
Oh, okay.
He's getting to the part where he's starting to be pissed off at the fact that people don't like him anymore, and he becomes whiny Brett.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But he's still the best. He's just also got a bone to pick, and this is right as they're just starting to figure out that Stone Cold is a good idea. So right at the start, that's why their feud is one of my favorites. It's because Stone Cold and Brett. I always talk about the double turn. They pull off the double turn, right?
Yep.
Brett goes full bad guy, and Stone Cold inexplicably becomes a good guy, which was a new concept at that time, that you could have a good guy who called everybody,
Anti-heel. That's the first, first I've ever seen.
So that was sort of, got into it then, carried that all the way through to Owen Hart when he died, and post sort of that era for a little bit, and then I fell off for 14 years until...
And then he met me.
Until I met my buddy over here, and she sort of was like, hey...
Tell your wife I'm sorry.
Third taste free, I guess, right? Because I already had the first and second taste, and helped me get back on the wagon, I guess. And then since then, I'd been sort of using the network to backfill the stuff that I missed, where I focused heavily on, CM Punk stuff, which was interesting because it's basically my favorite wrestler is a guy that I didn't watch live. I watch all that stuff post.
Yeah. So was it the CM Punk pipe bomb that got you back in, or
no?
Was it just what?
It was literally me saying, "Hey, so there's this thing called NXT, and I know you used to watch wrestling." And dedicating 3 hours a week is a lot, so maybe just an hour.
Oh wow! So right at the beginning of the next, was it?
No. This was
last fall.
Yeah,
basically.
last fall.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
it was pretty recent.
What would happen is every few months,
it
at
was
the big pay-per-view.
Slow burn.
At the big pay-per-view, she'd be like, hey, this happened, we talk about it. And she knew I could talk about it since I'd been a fan, and I'd be like, oh, cool, oh, this person does this now, oh, whatever. Yeah, it was hey, why don't you come over and watch this NXT thing? We're giving it a shot.
Yeah.
Because even
it was our evolution,
wow.
So it was perfect time to catch someone in, right?
Yeah, because you two both, you and Steve were not you weren't watching it week to week yet. You were just like, this thing's pretty good. And then, I remember one of the things we were saying is, this is so good, we have to watch it now. And we're like, damn, we got to find more time for wrestling. Ugh,
Yeah.
So that got me into it. And then and I watched Survivor Series. I started tuning in a little bit for some of the pay-per-views. But, and then that was, for years people have been saying to me, hey, you should check out CM Punk, like, you'd like him. Yeah. And so once I was like, all right, well, I'm already getting the network for NXT. I went back and watched all the Punk stuff to, like, backfill. Watching the CM Punk stuff, like, basically pre-pipe bomb through all of that on backfilling while watching NXT got me into it. And then I was picking up Raw. I'd watch, like, the Raw Hulu cut to sort of save time. Because that was, like, to go from Zero Wrestling to NXT, old CM Punk, and current Raw was, like, a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But that pretty much is what got me on it. And, the history of the Attitude Era stuff, yeah.
Sorry.
So, no, it's good.
So you're, like, long time fan that you just got back into it, essentially. Like, you were, like, in the Attitude Era kind of...
From 2002 to 2014... or 2015.
Like, you didn't watch anything.
I didn't watch anything, and I would occasionally talk to Brittany about it at work, like, from 2013 to 15 before fully going back in.
Wow.
But that was, like, it.
I gave him the Cliff Notes version every time something cool happened.
Yeah, or we'd, like, joke about a thing, like, she knew I'd, like, a Mick Foley thing because I knew about his stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
But anyone who came to be, like, firmly in that gap that I missed, because a lot of wrestlers hang around forever, right?
Yeah.
So you could talk to me about Orton or, Undertaker, Stone Cold, and I know what was going on, or Jericho. But, like, Jack Swagger or anyone in the middle of Del Rio, like, I just didn't know who they were, right? And CM Punk, actually, I didn't know also, but I just knew that I had many friends that were like, oh, if you were still watching, this guy would probably be the guy you like. Yeah. Like, the ones who knew me and who what I liked before. Yeah. And they totally, like, got it, because like when I went back and watched this stuff, I was like, this guy is the best. Like, and also the reason why I probably became more of a pain in the ass at work, because I was like, I want to drop my own friggin' pipe bombs.
Yeah. So when you first started watching wrestling, like, I mean, early beginning, like, who was your favorite wrestler, like, right at the start?
You talking about like the little kid one or like the informed fan one?
No,
little kid one. I think it's like the Legion of Doom. They were cool.
Oh yeah.
Like old Legion. I liked Heart Foundation, the tag team.
Yeah.
Which is funny because then I grew to like Heart Foundation, the faction, when they were complete jerks to everybody.
Yeah.
Like I even like was turning heel in junior high at the time and like walked around. People actually to this day, I'd run into people from high school and they thought I was Canadian. Because like during that Heart Foundation thing, I'd wear Canadian flag T-shirts and stuff, and like I wasn't like going full anti-American. I just was like pro-Canadian, and people didn't get it.
Pro-Canadian is anti-American.
That's what people basically said, And so then years later, they're like, "What? Why do you not like America?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Well, dude, like you're from Canada, right?" No.
I'm from Connecticut.
Yeah, exactly. From Connecticut, so
it's pretty close.
Yeah.
But,
So for the younger era, and then Hogan, just because like everybody
loved Hogan right at the beginning. Like I mean,
brother.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hulkamania. It was.
Yeah. So yeah, those ones, and then in the second sort of wave, like when when you become your own fan, right? It was Owen Hart, Bret Hart, Stone Cold and The Rock were great then, just those kind of people. Brian Pillman, the whole Hart Foundation, all those guys were pretty great. Psycho Sid, like they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm like one who didn't think the WWF was as bad as it was at the time before they were losing. I mean, WCW was also, I watched all that stuff too. Yeah. Like, Monday night was nuts, because I liked sports and wrestling. It was like, well, we got Monday Night Football, Raw, and Nitro. Channel flipping like crazy,
Did you watch any ECW at that time?
Yeah, ECW as well, dude.
Oh,
there's too much stuff going on, but, when you're in high school, you got a lot of time. So.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, even playing sports in school and all that stuff, and, like, girlfriend, whatever, like, had all the time to do that crap too, because, it's not the same as having a job, so...
Yeah. And then you got any, out of any of those, are there any, like, memorable matches that stick on your head?
Yeah, like, the one I always point to, the screw job. I mean, I watched that live. Like, that, it's crazy. You have no clue what's going on. Like, it blows your mind,
because it's the first time something like that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't know what was going to go on.
You don't even assume it's in the realm of possibilities.
Exactly, right? Like, that one was super memorable for that reason. That one's been talked about a lot, so I don't need to go deep on that one.
Yeah.
The, obviously, the Stone Cold Bret Hart turn was great. Like, it was nuts. And then for me, since I was such a big Owen fan, like, a lot of the pre- or post Bret leaving like when they were toying with the idea of actually giving Owen a push. Like, he had some really good matches and feuding with Triple H. It was like a really small window. It was almost like NXT storyline timeline. It was like an intense month of stuff, and then it was gone. Yeah. And then you look back in the archives, and it's almost like barely acknowledged. Like, everyone thinks of that phase as like Owen as the Nugget before he became like the Blue Blazer, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, I was watching live when he died, and that was just like nuts. Like, just how that whole thing went down. Yeah. So that wasn't memorable for like sad reasons, obviously.
Yeah, that's what dropped you out the second time, right?
Well, it wasn't like that was like my favorite guy. Also, things kept changing, and then at the time in my life, like I was thinking more about like what I was going to do in college and all that kind of stuff, and kind of fell off
in the real world.
And then in terms of like memorable, I'll add in this live match. I actually went to the first SmackDown pilot.
Oh, wow.
That just happened to be in Connecticut. Before they made it regular, they're like, we're going to have the show called SmackDown. And it was a throwaway show. And it was like, oh, of course, you're going to name a show after one of the Rock's sayings? All right.
Yeah.
Right? And
that will never stick.
And, there was like a gap in time between when it became regular and not, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. I mean, my most memorable thing from that one was like my dad went to the merch booth so that I could keep watching the show. And like kept buying the wrong size shirt, and I felt like bad because I kept having to send him back. Like, that shirt's too big. But yeah, I got my Rock shirt eventually. So, like, everybody liked the Rock.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Rock's shirts, that was another great thing in the Attitude Era. The stupid ass shirts that the Rock would wear.
Yeah,
because he was lazy back before he learned how to work out. Mm-hmm. The Rock used to just get liposuction every 6 months. So then he'd have to either wear windbreakers or fancy shirts to cover his scars.
Yeah.
From like his boob fat extraction surgeries that he'd have constantly, which is crazy. Now he's like the fittest man in the world. Like, he literally is Hercules, and they cast him for that in a movie.
It's kind of the best typecasting ever.
7,000 calories of cod a day, and like does all like he's the most ridiculous
a specimen.
Yeah. Like John Cena's on that same level, right? You're just like, are you for real?
Yep.
But it's funny. I think back then he was like cutting those corners,
Yeah.
So those shirts that he'd wear just kind of like, damn, that was like a staple of the Attitude Era. His sunglasses and those shirts.
All right. And then favorite active wrestler right now.
Yeah, so we were kind of speculating on this the other day.
Counting injuries or no?
We are counting
injuries of people that we know are going to come back?
Yes, injuries of people that we know are going to come back.
Yeah, for me that's got to be Rollins then, like all the way. He's great. Owens is right up there too. I mean, like, I definitely trend heel because they tend to be better on the mic and sort of have a better grasp of like controlling sort of the audience. And they also a lot of times can swing face for a little bit. Right, whereas like some people can only handle face or just nothing, right?
Yeah.
So Rollins is definitely the guy, and favorite of all time became Punk after that extended sort of viewing kind of thing, just because he felt like one of the few characters that had like more going on than just different. The classic like, is this guy a good guy or bad guy, or cool good guy or cool bad guy,
Yeah.
So I like that about him.
He'd never cared actually what you thought about him.
Yeah, he was just doing his own thing,
Yeah.
So that was pretty rad, right? No, I mean, it's weird, like, Brittany and I would always joke, wrestling imitating life or life imitating wrestling, sometimes with work stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, as I was getting into that Punk stuff came along at, like, a time where, like...
We were going through some difficult times, and at one point I'm just like, I'm just going to tell him what's on my mind. I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it. And then he's just like, pipe bomb. And he even got me like the little CM Punk pop figure. As like,
awesome.
Hey, by the way, like, this is badass.
Awesome.
Like that, that time, sort of saying what was going on was like a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was like, is this like a cool, like, symbolism can be big, right? And that was like kind of a cool symbolism thing there,
It meant a lot.
Yeah. So, like, that might be cheesy to some, but, hey.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big one for me.
You're okay sometimes.
Yeah. And second, like I said, Bret Hart, Owen Hart. Like, I tend to... So, heel's number one, and number two, the technically good wrestlers. Like, I've yet to have my sort of Daniel Bryan backfill binge, but I already know from the matches I've seen towards the end of his time
he's awesome.
that he's great, and I definitely appreciate that,
Yeah.
Like, the wrestlers that don't hurt the other wrestlers in their wressling.
Because they're so good at what they do. Of wrestling.
Yeah. So you may be able to guess that I don't like Ryback. So.
You don't say.
Yep. Next up is Brittany.
Hi.
So when did you first start watching wrestling?
So I probably have a different like origin story than most of the other wrestling fans I know. Because we're all 20-something, 30-somethings, and a lot of you have all watched it when you were kids, but I didn't. I got into wrestling at, historically, the pay-per-view that everybody says was the worst WrestleMania, WrestleMania 27. And I got into it because it had both The Rock and Stone Cold. And all of my friends who did watch wrestling as kids were like, oh my God, Stone Cold came back. Like, we have to watch this thing. And I was a big fan of The Rock, kind of like Kyle said. Everyone's a fan of The Rock. So sure, let's watch it. And you've got Miz and Cena for the championship.
Is that the one with the Miz?
Yeah, that was the one with the Miz. And it's like, I'd seen this guy because I'd watched The Real World a couple times. And I'm like, what the hell? This guy's a wrestler now? Like, and he's a jerk. This is kind of cool and interesting. There was the anonymous Raw general manager.
Oh my God, the worst gimmick.
Yeah.
There was
the worst.
There was the match, I think, between Michael Cole and
Jerry the King?
Yeah, I think it was that one.
God.
It was a like historically bad. Like looking back at it, I'm like, that was what got me into wrestling? Like, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well this is a cool one-off. Great. We spent $60, we watched this thing. And then we kind of just didn't stop watching it. We're like, okay, this is cool, just kind of dabble, and then that was the summer of Punk. So kind of going off the same thing. I remember hearing the
story of the Money in the Bank was when like you kind of got all in.
Yeah, that was like the moment where okay, I'm watching Raw every week. Like when CM Punk does the pipe bomb, and you're like, dude, is this real? Like, what is happening? Or he wins the belt, says he's leaving the company, and then you don't hear from him, and you just see like pictures of the belt in his fridge in Chicago.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't even know what to believe anymore. And that's when wrestling really kicked in for me, because I realized that it was more than just a bunch of guys like being silly, that it could be this big storytelling element.
That's like a great and both terrible like thing to get you into it, right? Because like it's very hard to do better than that, right?
Yeah.
Like your bar is set
almost
pretty
the pinnacle,
high, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think because of when I came in, it kind of only kept getting better, because the first time I saw WWE live was in early December in 2012 when they came to Key Arena, and that was the episode that basically changed the trajectory for Daniel Bryan to go to WrestleMania 30.
Right.
I was front row. Like if you watch it back, I'm in like every single shot on the Steadicam. And it's like Daniel Bryan had a match early on, I think, with Fandango. Yeah. And it's like, okay, cool, this is Seattle, let's get him out there, great. And by the end of the episode, they have literally everyone who is important to wrestling who isn't dead in the ring. They have Mick Foley, they have Christian, they have Edge, they have Cena, they have literally everybody. And the crowd just does not give a shit, and they're chanting for Daniel Bryan.
Wow. Oh,
and then all hell breaks loose, right? Like Randy Orton accidentally knocks over Stephanie, and then he gets a pedigree from Triple H, and it's kind of the most incredible thing. But from that point, you start to see, like, I hate calling it the Yes Movement, but that's really what it was. So this is like, the last 5 years have been kind of like the greatest, most recent wrestling, and that's all I know about wrestling, which is kind of awesome. And then there's that like dabbling, like, wait, there's more than just WWE. So I watch a little bit of Ring of Honor, I watch a little bit of New Japan, just kind of keeping up with it, but it's mostly like WWE, NXT.
After WrestleMania and you started watching, who was your favorite wrestler at that point, like early on?
At that point, I really, really loved Dolph Ziggler. And it's a lot like, if you're watching football, it's a lot like watching Peyton Manning. It's someone who's really good at what they do. And even when you don't fully understand the technical side of it, you start to see like, oh, this is entertaining. I get it. And the thing with Dolph Ziggler is he sells everything really well. It's the whole stealing the show thing, right? He makes it about him. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who he's wrestling. It looks like they're kicking Dolph Ziggler's ass. So I really liked him initially. CM Punk I really liked. I got really into Daniel Bryan. I liked Daniel Bryan before it was cool. I'm that person. I'm that awful wrestling fan.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about the Rock stuff, right? Because I've always just known that you love the Rock, right? But like, did that manifest because you liked the Rock as an actor before a wrestler?
Yes.
It had, because I feel like timeline-wise it had to be.
It really had to be.
He was fully part-time when you started.
Right. Like when I learned about the Rock, he was Dwayne Johnson.
Right.
Like he was friggin' Scorpion King. Like that's when and Tooth Fairy. Like that's about the time when I started to realize like, who is this guy at the Rock? Like who calls himself the Rock? Why would anyone do that?
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Except for where he tried to lose the Rock for a couple years and then he fully embraced
really
it.
Bad.
Yeah. It's right around when he embraced working out was when he embraced the Rock.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yep.
So it's it's like I had always liked The Rock in movies. I thought he was pretty entertaining. And it was just more like he wasn't my favorite actor at that point. Right now, like unabashedly, he's my favorite actor. Anything he's in, I see it opening night. I bring a giant group of friends.
Yep.
Kyle's been to every single opening of Fast and Furious with me.
It's good times.
But yeah, it was one of those. I understand why they bring back celebrities for WrestleMania because that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
Well, especially I could see how The Rock would be even more appealing as a wrestler after coming at it from there, because you get to see. The term I wanted to say was The Rock on steroids, but that's bad.
Yeah,
we're not allowed to say that.
Yeah, but you get to see like him, like plussed up, right? Because he is really good at sort of being a little over the top, but not terrible, depending on your perspective in the movies.
Yeah.
Whereas in wrestling, like, he's one of the guys who, like, ridiculous Attitude Era sells moves.
Yeah.
Like when CM Punk goes back to being heel after that like year and a half of just everybody loves him, right?
Beats The
and
Rock.
he just gives The Rock, go to sleep, and The Rock looks like a fish out of water, literally.
Yeah.
Like he's even doing like the mouth
Attitude
agape,
Era
like
style, like
he's on the
just
ground, he's rolling, his eyes are rolling back his head, and he's doing like that fish open mouth, like close, like fish food kind of thing, and you're like, holy crap, The Rock is the best.
Yeah.
Like, because
So great.
at that time, like CM Punk was like fully in his sort of vegan thing, and was like super lean and kind of looks scrawny, and then The Rock's this huge movie star, like
he's at this point, I want to say he's like Lesnar, where it's like he comes in and he's gonna wreck shop.
Yeah, but I mean, also
He's
just physique wise, like he looks like a superhero figurine.
He's doing like
right?
men's fitness covers.
Yeah.
He's getting
So
typecast as Hercules. Like at that point, he is action hero Rock.
Right.
Yeah.
So then this like skinny fit dude just picks him up and does this move, and The Rock sells it like
I love it.
like
So good.
he
So
just
good.
got
So
sniped
good.
across the map. So yeah.
Right.
Yep. So in the not just in the time, but just matches you've watched. What are some of like your favorite memorable matches that like have really stood out in your mind?
So favorite memorable matches. I was extremely lucky to use the excuse of, hey, it's summertime. I haven't visited my in-laws in New York. Hey, SummerSlam's happening. Maybe we should plan the trip for the same weekend. And we got to go to NXT Brooklyn.
Oh yeah.
And the match between Bayley and Sasha.
Oh, that's the first one, right? Is that the first one?
That was the first one.
Yeah.
That wasn't the Iron Man. That was the like the first one. Like Bayley, Sasha, she comes out in the white and gold, and you know she's gonna win because champions wear gold, right? And that was the theme that weekend.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
who won wore white and gold. But Sasha comes out with the car and the posse of security guards.
So dope.
And like by that point, because they filmed 2 episodes of NXT, so you had like a fatal 4-way with the women. You had Enzo and Cass opening the show in Brooklyn, which was the most insane thing, right? And you have 14,000 people all super stoked. So tensions are high. Bayley and Sasha happens, and when it's over, literally everyone around me was crying. Like not like full on tears, but you could hear like and these are grown men. Like this is wrestling, right? But everyone knows at that point,
that was awesome.
it's the 2-year culmination of Bayley being the underdog.
Yeah.
It's what they want Cena to be. Like Bayley did it.
Brilliantly told match.
Like everyone knew Bayley was going to win because Sasha's on the main roster. But it's that match that makes you second guess yourself the entire time.
Yeah.
So I got to see that live. I'd say second best one
awesome.
was when I was at WrestleMania last year and Rollins cashed in.
Oh my god.
Because
was
in the
fantastic.
moment, like I'm flying down to San Jose saying there's no way this is going to be good because everyone's like, oh, Roman, Brock Lesnar's totally going to kick his ass. And like 2 days before the show, he says, oh yeah, I signed a contract with WWE, and you're like, oh, this could go either way.
Yeah.
And the tension as the match is happening, you literally think in that moment that Roman could win it. Like that was the feeling in the stadium that I was
swayed,
in.
right? 'Cause
Yeah,
like,
that
it
last
started-
minute, the last 5 minutes,
Yes.
it just
It's
suddenly,
swayed.
it's like, oh my god,
I
this
had
might
no
happen.
idea it was going to happen, and I'm like, maybe Roman's actually going to win this thing. And then Rollins' music hits, and just everyone erupts. And it was one of those, like, no one thought it was going to happen because explaining something like Money in the Bank to people who, like me, only watch WrestleMania, they don't watch wrestling all year, it was this kind of thing, like, there's no way they're going to do it.
Plus, it
There's
can
too much
manifest so
explanation.
differently. Traditionally, it's
Yeah,
like
it's
cash it
after the
in
match.
right at the match, cheese out a victory, right?
Yeah.
Because it became a triple threat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because no one, it's never been done
It's never
during
been
the
done.
match.
So it was surprising even to the wrestling fans because
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no way that's never ever happened. Why would anyone do that? It's like if he cashes in, it's going to be after. Like, well, he could win against Roman. He can't win against Brock Lesnar. And then just the way they did it, where
The way they did
Perfect.
it was great.
the
Like,
way that Lesnar
Perfect.
loses, but he doesn't lose because of his skill. He loses because of something else that happened, and it's
Right.
like it's so
Perfect.
good.
Yeah.
Considering
so
how like critical at that time we had been, because we were not very happy about how the Rumble ended that year with Roman.
That was
and-
just 2 months of grumpy wrestling.
Yeah,
fans.
so then that happened. And that moment was so great. I mean, I was at her place feeding her cats, and I yelled and scared the crap out of them when the cash-in happened. I was like, yeah! It was pretty awesome.
You watch Raw, you watch NXT. Is there anything else promotion-wise that you either have watched or currently watch?
I watch an occasional Ring of Honor when something comes up. I really, really love Dalton Castle. I feel like that's one of those old school wrestling characters, like making kind of homosexuality and flamboyancy kind of uncomfortable, but he does it in a way that's not offensive. And just everything that he does with his boys, because you only call them boys, it's the only way you can say it. I watch anytime like Wrestle Kingdom's on, watching New Japan. I had the same weekend we were in Brooklyn for NXT, there was a show at the old ECW arena for Ring of Honor the night before in Philly. So I actually got to see Nakamura wrestle. Who was he fighting? I don't remember who he was fighting. But yeah, I got to see Nakamura live, and that was insane.
Yes. Of all the wrestling fans I've seen, I've never seen someone more intensely dive into wrestling as much as you have, because that's not only the WWE and NXT, but like going straight from there.
Oh, I go all in.
Yeah, it's all of the indies, international. I mean, that's.
I think that's the thing that Ray's learned about me, because we've only worked together for like 6 months. But like when I'm into something, like I'm fully committed.
Yeah.
And like I'm super into like the local indie wrestling scene and kind of following all the politics around that, and just like I feel like I need to know everything to fully get the big picture.
Yeah. Favorite active wrestler,
Active,
including injuries that are
likely to come back, so Daniel Bryan doesn't count. I would say there's a lot of the NXT. Like Sasha has become my favorite. I've always been a fan of Charlotte. And not because of the Ric Flair association like they're doing now, but because she's an athlete, that she didn't wrestle, and she's fully committed herself, kind of like we were just talking with me, that she looks like she could kill somebody.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome to see that from a woman. You don't normally see that. They over-sexualize them, right? And she does it because she's an athlete. I think Sasha's really come into her own, especially with the confidence of her being a wrestler. Seeing that happen over the course of the last year. I love Sami Zayn. I feel like he's really genuine, and you can tell the love that he has for something like this. But a lot of that, I mean, he's been doing this for years, is El Generico for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, El Generico retired and went down to Tijuana to help the offense. There's no association with Sami Zayn.
Yes.
None whatsoever. Kevin Owens is great. Yeah. I'm really just all in on NXT. Probably because that's where they're the best, and then I'm kind of upset with what's happening with the main roster, but that's a story for another episode.
Cool. And then favorite wrestler all time, doesn't have to be active.
Doesn't have to be active. All time. I mean, The Rock, I haven't actually seen him wrestle live. I'm hoping that happens this year in Dallas. That would be really cool.
That would be amazing.
We'll see if that happens. CM Punk, I absolutely loved everything that he's done. If Money in the Bank is on, I will 100% sit down and give it my full attention every time.
Yep.
I just put it on, like, get stoked about stuff.
Yeah.
I should probably watch it this week. It's been a rough week.
Yeah.
Yeah. CM Punk.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Ray.
You know what?
Ray, we need to know about you.
No, we don't.
We
don't.
We don't.
What?
Why?
Because we're out of time.
Out of time?
No!
We are out of time. But you know what?
We should have like a Ray episode where then we just interview you.
We might do. I think that's what we're gonna do.
Origin story 2.
So,
because dude,
part two.
You could do 3 episodes on just the Ray. Just, you know.
Ray's got it down.
I have a lot. I've been.
Ray's got friends who do this. Like Ray's got.
Yes.
Ray's got connections.
But for now, we're gonna wrap it up. We will continue this.
I'm so sad. I can't wait.
I know. We will continue this.
So excited.
Next episode, and it'll just be my intro. Because
the Ray episode.
The Ray episode.
I'm stoked for that. I think that's actually this developed on the fly, but this is good.
Yes.
I like this.
So if you
a little carrot.
If you like if you like the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at OnTheHeelsWP and on Facebook.com/OnTheHeelsWP. We should be getting on iTunes hopefully soon.
Oh man,
hopefully soon. I'm
so
trying to get that all figured out.
Oh man, technology. So you can like us, follow us, share us with your wrestling buddies. Feel free to tweet us, tell us how you got into wrestling, bring us suggestions for topics you want to hear, or if you just have various opinions and we can talk about them on air.
We just gotta lower the F-bomb amount, or once we get approved for iTunes, then I could start ramping up the F-bombs.
We can still do the F-bombs.
Oh,
All
sweet.
right. Well,
Yeah.
To find out how much F-bombs we're gonna drop or not, tune into our next episode, the Ray episode. Or maybe recap and Ray. I don't know. We're figuring it out as we go.
We're gonna
go full Ray and
full
then recap.
Ray, and then another episode we'll recap.
But
Awesome.
the thing we'll have to ask Ray is if he believes Sheamus will ever get over with the audience.
I don't think he will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
it's
no.
debatable, right?
I'm gonna say no.
You say no?
Ooh,
You better not.
Wrestling Podcast.